Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, well, it's an awfully sophisticated conversation so far, especially the short jokes, especially the ageist jokes that 75,000 years ago I was in high school. And I just want to tell you, Bill, that if I'd have known that Steve Moore was going to precede me to the podium, I would have followed the advice of my mentor, Ronald Reagan, who told me, Art, never follow children or animal acts. Goodness gracious, no. Seriously, it's a real pleasure to be here with Steve. Steve is one of my dearest friends. I left California a year and a half ago. I've been there for many, many years. I was born and raised in Cleveland. Went to Yale. Never went back to Cleveland. Finally ended up in California after teaching at the University of Chicago for all those years. And it was the dream state. And a year and a half ago, I decided to leave California. And the principle here is pretty straightforward. And let me, if I can, see if I hope it doesn't go over your head. I have the hardest time at Harvard because they just don't get it. But let me just see if I can explain it. If you have two locations, A and B, if you raise taxes in B and you lower them in A, producers and manufacturers and people are going to move from to hello. I mean, is this so complicated? I mean, the other one that just amazes me, and help me with this. I mean, these are just the basic precepts of supply-side economics. If you tax people who work, and you pay people who don't work, come on, please, don't be surprised if you find a lot of people not working. Is that so complicated? There's not a professor who understands it. But, I mean, the other one that just amazes me, because you hear it nonstop, and I mean, is that if you tax rich people and give the money to poor people, you're going to have lots and lots of poor people and no rich people. The dream has always been to make the poor rich, not to make the rich poor. The dream is always to build the bottom up, not to tear the top down. I left California after my governor, and I'm going to tell you, my governor there, Arnold Schwarzenegger, terrific guy, fantastic person. He fought the good fight. We had the special election, if any of you remember. It was terrific. He tried to, to get union dues, at least have people have to have a sign-off if they're going to use for political purposes. He tried to have a spending control. He tried to extend the period of time before teachers get tenure. The one I was a co-author on was on redistricting, trying to make all the districts competitive. It's just he fought the good fight. He lost. We all lost. California lost. A little while later, there was radio silence, and then in January 2006, he came out with his State of the State address, which he flipped sides. And unfortunately, I just looked at the world then, and I decided I wasn't going to stay there. I did not want to spend the rest of my life in a tailspin state that I just loved with all my heart and soul. So I decided to move. I looked at all the 9 states, Steve. In fact, one of them I'd done the tax reform for Alaska that actually had eliminated the progressive income tax, the first time ever. I looked at all 9, and I ended up with 3 states: Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. Now, I had looked at Nevada. I just want you to know that. I looked at Nevada, but I thought for a moment, my firm being in Las Vegas, I can imagine Laffer Investments out of Las Vegas, Nevada. It just somehow didn't have the correct cachet, if you know what I mean. But I did that. In leaving California, just some fun stuff, Steve covered a lot of the serious stuff. Some of the fun stuff, when I decided to leave, I'm a collector. I'm a nut. I'm a collector. I have a fossil collection. I collect trees. I have 6 kids, 10 grandchildren, antique collection. I have all that stuff, and I love my stuff. So when I moved, I was not going to let someone else pack it and move it. So I tried to check on whether I get my guys to move our stuff. So I went out to find out how much I could rent a truck for. Now, I went to U-Haul, but I ended up with Penske, but it doesn't matter. It's the same story. How much did it cost to rent a U-Haul? Now, you can rent a 26-foot U-Haul and drive it, without a special license. If you get anything bigger, you need a chauffeur's license. So I checked the U-Haul. To rent a 26-foot U-Haul from San Diego to Nashville was $5,820 one way. That's a big truck. But I noticed when I looked at the pricing screen that to rent that same truck from Nashville to San Diego, it was only $820. Huh. So I checked a little further, and I found out if you rented the truck for 10 days, unlimited mileage, intra-San Diego, just picking it up in San Diego, putting it back in San Diego for 10 straight days, the cost was $5,000. If you did it in Nashville for 10 days, intra-Nashville, the cost was $150. For 10 days, unlimited mileage. So I flew my guys out to Nashville. We rented their truck right across country, filled that little sucker up right back there. We happened to return it to Penske, and we did 5 big trucks full, and got back, and my first guy is a guy named Mike Madsen, great guy, very buttoned-down suit, tie, stiff a little bit. And so he returns the truck to Penske 4 or 5 hours ahead of time. And the Penske guy says, you know, you got 4 or 5 hours if you need to use the truck. No, it's fine, we're through, we'll return it. He said, well, I need to inspect the truck. Yep. And he said, the back's down, oh, looks clean, no dents, no bumps, perfect, great. Oh, by the way, what's the mileage? And my guy says, hold on, there's no charge for mileage. Oh, yeah, you're right, there's no charge for mileage. We just like to keep a record of it. And he goes, 4,400 miles? My guy looks at him and says, I took side roads. Now, there are some downsides. There are some downsides to moving to Tennessee from San Diego. For example, I no longer can with certainty say my governor can beat up your governor. In fact, if any of you know the governor, he's just wonderful. Schwarzenegger's a wonderful, wonderful man. In fact, talk about short jokes. The first time I spent any real amount of time with him, I had breakfast with him at his home, and the two of us, and I came in, and I decided to have a little fun with him, and I said just how pleased I was that when I was over the moon, I was ecstatic when I found out he had Wilson and Buffett as his advisors. I mean, I was just over the moon with joy and delight, and then how crushed and depressed I was when I found out it wasn't Owen and Jimmy. When I found out it was Pete and Warren. But, you know, this stuff matters. Let me do you one today. You all know Corzine. You know what's going on in New Jersey. In 1965, New Jersey had neither an income tax nor a sales tax. It was one of the fastest growing states in the nation, attracting people all over the place. Its budget was in surplus. Today it has one of the highest sales taxes, one of the highest income taxes. It's repelling people like mad, and it has a huge budget deficit. You know, you don't solve, you can't tax a state into prosperity. You can't do it. And this, please let me say this to you, it's not Republican. It's not Democrat. It's not left-wing. It's not right-wing. It's not liberal. It's not conservative. It's economics. And it's simply straightforward economics. I mean, some of the worst governors in our state's history, California's state's history, were Republicans. I mean, Ronald Reagan was not a very good governor, as some of you may know. Pete Wilson was the biggest tax increaser ever after Reagan. I mean, the best governor was Jerry Brown. I mean, during Jerry Brown, we indexed the personal income tax. You know, we put Prop 13 on the properties. And Jerry Brown was very helpful in all this stuff. I mean, you look at these things, it's not left-wing, it's not right. I mean, you look at, you know, my classmate at Yale, Bob Taft. If any of you are from here, from Ohio. Bob Taft was my classmate at Yale. Bob Taft Sr., the most serious Mr. Republican, best senator ever in the United States. Bob Taft, his grandfather is spinning in his grave watching what that guy did to my home state of Ohio, a Republican. And then you look at Bill Richardson in New Mexico. He's cut the tax rates. He's made New Mexico attractive. He's brought them in. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. This is common sense economics. And that's... It has gotten to be considered partisan, but please, please help me.